Hey man, ever had that moment when something just doesn't add up about the way she acts? That's exactly what led a group of Harvard psychologists down a rabbit hole. After studying the private, unfiltered behavior of 500 prostitutes, women who see the full range of male behavior daily, they uncovered something unsettling, a hidden behavioral pattern, a dark trait few talk about, but many men unknowingly deal with. We're talking about a female psychopathic trait that operates beneath the surface. It's subtle, seductive, and often disguised as love, empathy, or just how she is. But once you learn how it works, everything starts to make sense. The emotional manipulation, the subconscious instincts, and the chaos it leaves behind. And here's the kicker. Most men never spot it, not until it's too late. So, if you've ever been burned, confused, or left wondering what the hell just happened, this might be the missing piece you've been looking for. Miss this, and you're stuck in the loop. See it clearly? You step into male self-mastery, rejection immunity, and a whole new level of psychological control. If this resonates with you in any way, feel free to like, drop a comment, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. It helps the message reach more men on the same path. Let's break this down step by step. What the study found, how it plays out in real life, and how you can finally take back control. The disturbing trait found in women after Harvard's study on 500 prostitutes. Imagine this. A group of Harvard psychologists sits across from women who've seen the rawest side of men, the side that shows up when there are no expectations, no romance, no performance. These women, 500 of them, opened up about what they really see behind closed doors. But the twist? It wasn't the men who revealed the shock, it was what these women revealed about themselves, a pattern, a female psychology trait so precise, it disturbed even the researchers. They weren't looking for drama, they were studying behavioral patterns. Cold, data-backed analysis. But something kept repeating in these women's stories. A behavior, subtle yet consistent, masked as empathy but loaded with control. They had no idea what to call it at first. But then, one term surfaced, psychopathic trait. Not in the cinematic horror movie sense. No, it was colder, sharper, hidden in plain sight. It was embedded deep in dark, feminine nature, and it thrived undetected. Here's the punch. This trait doesn't scream, it whispers, it doesn't chase, it lures. And the average man, even the smart, well-meaning guy, walks straight into it. That's where this study hits hardest. These professionals weren't emotional about it, they were objective. Trained to observe. And what they exposed shakes the foundation of how we see sexual dynamics, attraction triggers, and the so-called rules of modern intimacy. Something no dating coach dares to admit. What these 500 women described wasn't just emotionless manipulation. It was methodical, predictable, and yes, disturbingly effective. The psychologists started connecting dots, cross-referencing with existing research in evolutionary psychology. The findings weren't comforting. This was deeper than games or tests. It was about survival, selection, and emotional detachment packaged in softness. The mating strategy hidden behind a smile. And the worst part? Most men still call it mood swings or just being emotional. Think about that. How many times have you told yourself she's just in a weird mood, without ever questioning the psychological control behind it? That's the genius of this hidden trait. It feeds off your logic. It survives by being underestimated. The more rational you are, the easier it is for her to slide under your radar. One researcher called it a weaponized innocence, a silent tool embedded in subconscious instincts, triggered without awareness, no scripts, no plan, just nature. Let's get visual for a second. Picture a lioness in tall grass. She doesn't roar, she watches, times her move, predicts. Now replace that lioness with a woman using subtle silence, micro-rejections, and innocent glances to pull strings you don't even know are there. That's the kind of female selection mechanism this study uncovered. And it's not just about sex. It's about hierarchy, control, the upper hand. Welcome to the sexual marketplace where behavior, not words, rules the game. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Some of these traits, cold detachment, lack of remorse, surface level charm, they mirror classic signs of alpha behavior, but inverted, feminized, polished with sweetness. The trait blends into the room, builds trust fast, then shifts the frame. The man starts adjusting his behavior without realizing it. He stops leading, starts pleasing, slowly abandons his masculine frame, and just like that, he's out of control while thinking he's still holding it. One of the most surprising patterns? These women described how quickly some men gave up their masculine authority, not under pressure, but through subtle psychological nudges, a look, a cold shoulder, a sudden change in tone. Nothing dramatic, just enough to make the man question himself. That's where the trait lives, in uncertainty. These weren't just isolated incidents. This was a common thread woven through hundreds of encounters, quiet, repeated, and deadly to a man's inner compass. What's even crazier, most men actually reward this behavior. They chase, they try harder, they assume they did something wrong. But the data showed that this response reinforces the trait. It tells her, this works, so she refines it. Over time, this becomes a dominant signal. Not loud or aggressive, but calculated. It flips the power dynamics of the interaction. Suddenly, she's leading emotionally, while he's reacting, adjusting, and losing grip on his own identity. And this isn't some fringe theory. The research team cross-checked these findings with decades of studies on female psychology and real-world relationship breakdowns. The overlap was undeniable. Emotional coldness, calculated attachment, surface-level empathy. These weren't outliers. They were indicators of a psychopathic trait uniquely adapted to the feminine form. One expert even compared it to a biological defense mechanism, soft in appearance, sharp in execution. It's not evil, it's instinct. To make this real, let's talk about Michael. Good guy, solid job, believed in love, loyalty, all that. He met a woman who seemed perfect, nurturing, charming, feminine. But 3 months in, things shifted, subtle digs, strategic silence, withholding affection without explanation. He bent over backwards to fix it, gave more, complimented more. She stayed distant. By the end of 6 months, he didn't recognize himself. The worst part? She walked away, calm, cold, and completely in control. Michael's story isn't rare. It's what happens when you don't understand the mechanics of female selection and emotional manipulation. You end up trapped in someone else's frame, reacting instead of leading. And the cost? Your time, your energy, your self-respect. That's why this study matters. It sheds light on a truth about women that's often hidden behind flowers, texts, and sweet words. It teaches you to read behind the lines, to recognize not just what's said, but what's done. Here's something powerful. Awareness changes everything. Once Michael learned what really happened, he stopped chasing closure. He rebuilt, read about mating strategy, rewired his mindset, and focused on inner power. He started noticing the patterns early, the fake vulnerability, the mirrored interests, the attraction triggers designed to reel men in, then reverse polarity. He stopped reacting and started observing. That's when his results with women, and his confidence, took a permanent shift upward. And this shift, it's not about becoming cold or bitter. It's about male self-mastery, about understanding the hidden layers behind charm, tears, and affection. The study from Harvard wasn't meant to vilify women. It was a mirror, reflecting behaviors men were never trained to see. That's why it's so effective, because these traits don't look hostile. They look familiar, comfortable, even sexy. But when you learn what's really behind them, you stop falling for illusions and start leading with clarity. That clarity is what separates men who repeat cycles from men who break them. When you can spot a desire paradox, that tension between what she says she wants and what actually draws her in, you stop making decisions based on surface words. You begin reading her energy, her patterns. That's the gateway to rejection immunity, to stepping out of emotional traps and reclaiming your role in the modern dating reality. And it all starts here, with truth. That truth doesn't always feel good. In fact, for most men, it stings, because it means admitting you missed the signs, that the intimacy you thought was real might have been tactical, but the sting is temporary. What follows is strength. You begin to see how subconscious instincts drive behavior far more than declarations of love or commitment. That's when you stop being confused by the chaos. You start seeing the code. And once you see the code, you can rewrite it. And here, a quick pause. If this content is hitting hard, making you see things you felt but couldn't name, do yourself a favor, hit that like button and subscribe now. Don't wait. Because the moment you understand these dynamics, you can't unsee them. And the deeper we go, the more clarity you gain. This video might be the wake-up call you didn't know you needed. Don't miss what's coming next. So how do you spot it early? Watch for the disconnect. The words say one thing, but the energy's off. There's no warmth behind the compliments, no softness behind the smile. Just calculation. It feels like she's playing a role. That's your first clue. This isn't about paranoia. It's about awareness. It's about recognizing when behavioral patterns are serving a hidden purpose, one that shifts control without confrontation. She's not loud. She's precise. And that's what makes it dangerous. You might notice a strange calmness when she's pushing you away. No anger, no chaos, just a slow withdrawal, like it's part of a script. That's not random. That's a mating strategy. It conditions you to chase, to prove, to submit. And over time, it weakens your ability to enforce boundaries. This is why so many men end up apologizing for things they didn't do, trapped in a dynamic they didn't see forming. That's the power of psychological control. Now, you might be thinking, Isn't that just insecurity? Sometimes. But what separates it from normal emotional behavior is consistency. It's cold, repetitive, and lacks emotional depth. There's no regret, no reflection. That's the defining mark of the female psychopathic trait identified in this study. She doesn't act out of pain, she acts from programming. And if you're not grounded in self-respect and firm masculine frame, you'll be led by her patterns without even noticing. Here's the crazy part. Society actually rewards this behavior. Movies call it strong and independent. Social media praises it as boundaries and standards. But when observed in the wild, in real, raw, uncensored interviews with women who see hundreds of male interactions, the truth stands out. It's not strength, it's strategy, weaponized through charm. That's what Harvard researchers couldn't ignore. They weren't moralizing, they were mapping behavior, and they saw through the illusion. The truth about women hit hard. You won't find this in mainstream psychology books, not because it's false, but because it's uncomfortable. It challenges the myth of emotional vulnerability. It forces men to accept that attraction triggers are not moral, they're primal. They're tied to dominance, scarcity, and precision. And when women feel power, they test. Not always consciously, but instinctively. That's the game. And if you don't understand the rules, you're not playing. You're being played. That's why inner power isn't optional. It's survival. So what can you do about it? Start by observing, not reacting. Track what changes when you pull back. Does her warmth vanish? Does she punish distance? Does she fake emotional intimacy only when she's losing grip? These are signs, indicators that you're not in a relationship. You're in a frame war. And to win, you need discipline. Study male self-mastery. Learn the sexual dynamics that shape behavior. And stop giving energy to people who weaponize connection. Here's a solid move. Journal after each interaction. Ask yourself, did I feel respected or managed? Did I lead or did I follow? This one habit alone can sharpen your awareness faster than most courses out there. Combine that with reading works on evolutionary psychology, like Jeffrey Miller's research, and you'll start to see the blueprint. You'll start predicting responses, not reacting to them. That's when you move from emotional prey to strategic leader in the sexual marketplace. Once you understand how this trait operates, you begin to protect your masculine authority without becoming aggressive. You don't need to dominate. You need to stay unmoved, calm, unbothered. That's the antidote to the trait, emotional neutrality. A grounded presence. It forces her frame to either align or break. And that's where true dominant signals are born. Not from shouting, but from silence. From not reacting. From knowing exactly who you are and refusing to bend for conditional attention. Don't get it twisted. We're not here to demonize women. Most don't even know they're doing this. It's not calculated evil. It's subconscious instincts rooted in survival. In ancient times, selecting the strongest, most emotionally stable man was life or death. That software still runs today. But now it's hidden behind texts, filtered photos, and rehearsed intimacy. If you don't update your awareness, you'll keep operating on a fantasy, not reality. And that gap will cost you. That cost shows up as anxiety, confusion, emotional burnout. Men ask, why doesn't she appreciate me? Because appreciation isn't the currency here. Power is. If you're giving yours away for crumbs of attention, you've already lost. That's why psychological control only works on men who are disconnected from their self-respect. You teach her how to treat you by what you tolerate. When you stop tolerating emotional games, everything changes. Fast. Let's get practical. Next time you're in a situation where the vibe shifts, silence, passive aggression, inconsistent affection, pause. Breathe. Don't chase the energy. Observe it. Name it. Hold your center. This rewires your nervous system. It reclaims your frame. Over time, your entire behavioral pattern starts to shift. You no longer get baited, you lead. That's the root of rejection immunity. Not from being bulletproof, but from being unshakably grounded. Here's a tool. Write down the 3 behaviors you accept that drain your energy. Now ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if I stop accepting these? That fear, whether it's losing her, being alone, or feeling unworthy, is the crack she slips through. Fill that crack with inner power. Start choosing your peace over her presence. That's not cold. That's clarity. That's leadership. That's the mindset shift this Harvard study forces us to make. It all comes down to this. If you don't understand modern dating reality, you're not in control of your outcomes. You're emotionally outsourcing your sense of worth. And the moment you do that, her mating strategy kicks in. Not because she's cruel, but because she's wired for it. That's the paradox. She tests to find strength. If you fail, she can't follow. And if she can't follow, she disconnects. Nature doesn't care how nice you are. It rewards awareness. So the question is, are you aware? Do you see the hidden desire that drives her behavior? Can you separate her words from her actions? That's where male self-mastery begins. Not in control of her, but in clarity over yourself. When you master that, you stop needing answers. You stop needing closure. You become the man who can walk away. Not to punish, but because you finally see the game and choose not to play it blindly anymore. And when you stop playing blind, everything slows down. You're no longer in a rush to prove, impress, or fix. You simply observe. That's when attraction triggers shift in your favor. She feels your calm, your presence, and suddenly the dynamic flips. You're no longer reacting to emotional manipulation. You're setting the rhythm. The bait no longer hooks you because you recognize it for what it is, a test, not an invitation. That's when you start moving different, the standard. That shift begins when you integrate the truths this study uncovered. And when you understand the dark feminine nature, you stop fearing it. You work with it, navigate it, use it as feedback. And that's where real masculine growth lives, not in avoiding discomfort, but in decoding it. Decode enough and you become immune to chaos. That's the power of pattern recognition. It's not just about her, it's about every interaction you'll ever have. Business, family, leadership. It's all behavioral patterns and psychological control. When you lead yourself, you naturally lead others. And when you live from masculine frame, you attract from truth, not performance. That's how real attraction works. It's not about being everything she wants. It's about being unshakably who you are. And once you become that man, the one who sees clearly, moves with purpose, and lives with alignment, you don't just avoid the traps. You build something different entirely, something real, grounded, unbreakable. But of course, that's a conversation for another time. So now that you've seen it, really seen it, what are you going to do with it? Will you keep letting subconscious instincts run your relationships? Or are you ready to lead with clarity, strength, and inner power? Are you done reacting to tests you don't even know you're failing? Or are you finally ready to spot them, name them, and stay in your masculine frame? This wasn't just a video, this was a mirror, a blueprint. A reminder that behind the charm, behind the chaos, behind the softness, there may be a female psychopathic trait shaping the entire dynamic. So here's what I want to know. What was the moment in this video that hit you the hardest? Drop a comment below and let's talk. If you made it to the end, write this in the comments. I see the pattern now. It's a signal to yourself and to other men that you're done playing blind. Thank you, seriously, for being the kind of man who stays to the end, who wants truth, and who's willing to see what most avoid. If this hit home for you, like the video, send it to a friend who's stuck and subscribe with notifications on. There's more coming, deeper, sharper, more powerful. You deserve to know the rules of the game you've been playing your whole life.